Welcome to Creator Commons, where we talk about how media and creativity interacts with business. So the theme of today's podcast is going to be how do you make intelligent purchasing decisions when it comes to gear? There's just so much stuff that's offered, especially to creatives, about like gear and all that kind of stuff, and it's really hard to determine what is worthwhile. Like, what do you actually want to use? What are you going to actually get good use out of? And Lord knows I've made a ton of bad purchasing decisions, but it's kind of a live and learn type of thing, but hopefully I can help you guys avoid making some of the same mistakes. Um so one of the biggest things is understanding why this is important, right? So this is important not only because you don't want to spend ridiculous amounts of money on stuff you don't need, but also you don't want to feel like an idiot. Like, having the clutter and having the junk oftentimes inhibits creativity. I know I get really creative when I have access to some of the necessary resources and I have to figure out solutions for the rest of it. And I think especially if you're early on in your career, limiting your options is actually a really good thing because it makes you really, really good at what you can do. You're really good at what you have access to. You're really good at what you can do. All of that kind of stuff, I think, is super important to creativity. Not to mention the most obvious thing, which is gear costs money and you want to buy good stuff. So oftentimes you end up buying the most expensive stuff. I'm surrounded by Amaran Lights, which is one of, in my opinion, the best budget lighting brand out there. Partially because I'm not a massive studio, but I'm looking at upgrading to Aperture quality lighting, which is their big brother essentially. But I didn't buy all of this at once, first of all, and I also acquired it based on what I needed. And I think that this is one of the biggest things that I've been able to figure out to make myself a lot more happy with my purchasing decisions. I mean, I don't think there's been anything within the last year that I've regretted buying. Like, I really don't have much buyer's remorse anymore just because I mean, not only do I not purchase a lot of stuff anymore, but I also I know what I need and I know what the essentials are. So what I think we're going to jump into is the way I kind of look at it is a decision tree. And and So the decision tree, at least for me, always starts with what are you going to use it for? Is there something else that's going to fill that role? And how badly do you need it? Um, so let's follow the route of, let's say, okay, this is a piece of gear that I really do need, like, or this is a piece of gear that I really don't need. Like, this is not going to really help me. So I think, again, the biggest question to answer first is what value are you getting out of this piece of gear? It can look cool, it can do cool things, but that's not the value you're getting out of it. The value is, can I translate this into money? Can I translate this into an easier workflow? Can I rent it out and make more money from that? So, as whether you're a freelancer or a production company, you really need to be thinking about these things because while walkie-talkies may not make you more money, they will make your life easier, which is going to speed things up, which comes around to making more money. So a lot of times the things that you're like, well, the giant monitor that I bought isn't making me more money. Hold up, let's think about it for a second. Is the monitor large enough so that you can see you're focusing better? Is it something that your director or your clients are going to make them happier? It's going to make them want to work with you more. That's all a massive piece of this. So improving client experience is always worthwhile, in my opinion, if you can afford it and if it is not going to bog down your setup. But so you've decided that this is a piece of gear that you need, and that's kind of just deciding on the general category. Then you start to have to look at what are the essential features of this piece of gear that you have to have. Like, for all the lighting that I have bought, I probably could have bought one Aperture 300, and that's a great light, and I definitely want it. but was it practical for me at the time? Like, what I'm thinking about is I didn't need the professional features. I needed something that was bright enough to use for product setups, which are already really close and compact. Um, then you have to think about from there, or if it has the features that I need, is this the most economical way to get all the features that I need? Like, the reason that I have all aperture lights is because I want to be able to control them from their Sidus Link app. That's one of the biggest things. I want to be able to stand next to the director or DP and just, oh, yes, this light needs to come down. This light needs to come up. Which, I mean, that's not always practical, but especially if, like, let's take an example of like why you wouldn't buy Amaran lights. One of the best examples is they just lack some professional features. They lack DMX controls and a couple other things that like gaffers on large sets would be looking for. But that's not where I'm shooting. So right now, this works. Currently I have a 200D, 100D, an Amaran PT4, and then a MC. I don't think it's just the regular MC, not the MC Pro or anything, up there behind me. And all of these lights are incredible. Like, these all work really well, good output, especially for the level that I'm shooting at. And yes, I'm looking at higher output options, especially for shooting in larger spaces or shooting through more diffusion and getting a lot more power through that diffusion. But for right now, this is pretty great. Like, this has got me set up. I can shoot social media stuff. I'm shooting for a construction company tomorrow. I mean, quite literally, it is so, like, this works. Like, it really does work well. While it's not perfect and while it's sometimes a little underpowered, it still works really well because I'm not typically shooting on large scale sets. So from there, once you decided the features that you need and you found a light that has them, and decided kind of what you, like what you, I guess, like what you want to buy, you got to figure out, first of all, is this something that goes on sale often? That's one of the biggest questions. I think we all love a deal. Ooh, bumped the mic. So sorry about that. I think we all love a deal, but is it something that you need right now? I think the next thing, yes, you're looking for deals, but you're also looking at time frame. Like, let's say, because I've experienced this, when I interned for some people, it was like, okay, we have a shoot next week and we need backdrops for that shoot. And it's like, cool. Yeah, we're going to buy them at full price. Even though they're going to go on sale at like the end of the season, we need them next week. So we're going to have to buy them at full price. So I think making that consideration, like a great example for me is, like getting like a new high powered light. That's kind of the biggest thing that I've been looking at. Getting that new high powered light, it's going to be great. Like, I'm super, super excited about it. And I'm really looking forward to having a more high powered light just to get a lot more power into this space and to bring on client shoots, just to be a little bit more impressive. But do I need it right now? No, I don't. I have lights that I can use, things that are workable. So honestly, right now, it's not essential. So what I do is I wait for a deal. I wait for something to pop up used. That's another really good question. Is this something you can buy used? And I'm going to give a couple of recommendations about buying used gear that I have strong opinions about. I don't buy batteries used, and I don't buy memory cards used. I always buy those things new just because it worries me to maybe have something that was plugged into somebody else's computer. And because like data drives, I actually had one I was downloading footage so I could download the new version of DaVinci Resolve, which is a whole another story. They keep dropping new versions, and I'm hoping they corrected something in there, because like I think there was an issue with linking audio to video where they were sliding independent of each other, even though the clip should have been linked. So that's just a whole nightmare. Speaking of that, time to crack my energy drink because yes. Yeah. Not a sponsor, but I would love it if they did. But I have the Cosmic Stardust by Alani Nu. This is pretty good. I feel like it's only like my second time having that one. What does it taste like? Oh, it tastes vaguely like the gummies, like specifically the Skittles gummies for some reason. I can't explain it, but there's like they must put like a same chemical in there that produces a very similar taste. I can't explain it, but it is true. It tastes super similar. But back to kind of the flowchart thing. And this is not a perfect flowchart. I probably should actually make one and put one out next to this episode. That's just a more kind of formalized version of this. But you got to think about how the wear and tear on something is gonna be affect the performance of it. Like batteries over time tend to drain quicker with overuse, with weird things happening with charging, all of that kind of stuff. So those are just considerations to make if you're, thinking about buying batteries or memory cards used. I mean, I just always think it's better to buy them new. It makes your life easier. You're just completely sure about what has happened with those memory cards. Um, it's one of those things. But once you kind of figure that out, you kind of have your way set for just what you're going to buy. And I think you have to be just being smart with purchasing decisions is huge. Um, Typically, I always have, let's call it 3 to 4 things that I'm looking at getting. And usually those are kind of mentally ranked. Like usually there's 3 or 4 things that I'm like, yes, this would be helpful, this would be helpful, and this would be helpful. And sometimes I break my own rules and this would be cool, that'd be helpful, and this would be cool. Um, Oftentimes I try not to break my own rules when it comes to purchasing just because I am on a really limited budget. I'm fresh out of school. I'm freshly 22 years old. As of after September 2nd, I am 22 years old. So, that's like I'm young. I don't have a lot of access to a lot of different types of gear. But I think there's also beyond the purchasing decisions of what you need and all that kind of stuff, you have to really analyze how much you're going to spend on things. Camera bodies are one of the things that goes out of date the quickest in the film world. So oftentimes things other than camera bodies are better investments. I try to make sure that all of my purchasing outside of the physical camera body is something that can be applied to future cameras, and like fortunately things are pretty standard. So currently my rig, the only thing I'd have to change out is the actual cage on it to make it compatible with all the other pieces of kit that I bought. So that's really, really nice. And it makes my life a whole lot easier. And yes, there might be more optimal pieces of gear to like use with like things that are not DSLR style bodies. But that is a different story for when I have more money. But yeah, it's one of those things where you have to think about the longevity of a piece of gear. And when you're starting out, a lot of times you're like, yes, I have no idea how much I'm going to use each individual thing. And from there you're like, well, I'm going to buy the cheapest version, or I'm going to buy a not super expensive thing because I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it. And that's totally legit. But once you're going to use it, like, you're going to use like certain types of lighting or certain types of modifiers, especially because I feel like lighting is just kind of what you can get, like, the most amount of wattage for your money essentially is what you're trying to do. And you just kind of pick an ecosystem and stick with it. It's very similar to cameras. I don't know because I haven't looked into the new Canon camera that's like the FX3 killer. And I'd be hard pressed to call it an FX3 killer. I would be more likely to call it a competitor, an answer to, which I feel like is a lot more practical than calling it the this Canon is the FX3 killer. And I always hate that terminology. And I know I play into it sometimes when I create content of like, just like, this is the best option on the market because I said so. And that's one of the biggest things. Do your own research. I guess I'll talk a little bit about how I research the products that I want to buy. So number one, I don't have the time, resources, or knowledge to do full like research things on a lot of these products. So a lot of times for the technical specs, I go to a couple of people. The two that I can think of off the top of my head are DSLR Video Shooter and Gerald Undone. They are two of the most professional people. And then you start to like once you get the specs down, and it depends on where you're at in your whole journey. Like if you're farther along than I am and you have a lot more experience and you have just more connections with people who use similar types of gear, then you guys should probably sit down and have a conversation about, well, this piece of gear didn't work so well for me for X, Y, and Z reasons. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but if these things aren't important to your workflow, then there probably isn't an issue. And that's going to vary. But a lot of times for me, because I don't particularly have access to those resources, I go online and start to look at what product photographers are using or what event style photographers are using. So go look at people who are in your niche and look at what they're saying. Also, hopping on online message boards is really a great thing. And I personally am starting to develop those connections with people where I can ask them about gear, what they think of it, what they think is worth purchasing, what they think is not worth purchasing. So overall, I really do recommend, getting out of your own head when it comes to that kind of stuff. And really kind of putting it on paper. Like, again, like I said earlier, you got to talk about what you actually need, because what you actually need can oftentimes be very different than what you want. We want a lot of things because we want them because they look cool. And I totally get it. Like, I have bought so many things where I'm like, that looks awesome. Or that YouTuber who is super cool and may or may not do the same thing. I honestly don't know what half of these, like, camera YouTubers do. Like, I'm not sure if they're still, like, photographers and videographers, or if they are just making YouTube content because that makes them enough money. Which, that's no shade, but it also changes how I view their recommendations. Like, Gerald Undone is not somebody that I look at for on-set recommendations. I look at him for technical specs. I kind of analyze how he what he presents is done technically, but he doesn't have the same needs that I do. He does YouTube. He's a YouTube person, and that's great. Like, but my goal is to build a production company. I'm trying to build a production business. So your needs oftentimes do vary based on the internet. One of my good buddies, though, he came up with a really interesting concept called cinema versus social. And it's where we compare gear and talk about where the gear is applicable instead of just talking about generally overall. Whether it is better for like professional quality movie sets, or whether you're talking about like for social media. Like I'm a social media creator, I'm a content creator, or I'm a content creator for businesses. All of those differ wildly, and it always frustrates me to hear people be like, this is what the professionals use. Which professionals and where? Because I've been on enough sets to know that is not what the professionals use. Wow, I sound conceited sometimes, but it's all right because y'all know that it's in love and I just don't want anybody to get fooled. I honestly think, this is kind of out of left field, but I think camera companies really do a good job oftentimes, like, of giving like less bull with selling their products. Because, I mean, like, let's be real. Most photographers and videographers have worked in advertising in some form or fashion at some point in their lives. And that just kind of means that they don't tolerate that. They will call things out. Plus, there's a bunch of people who test it online, so it's really hard to get it past them. Um, and again, I think it's been said many times on the internet, like most cameras these days are good cameras. So it's hard to go wrong with a lot of the gear that's out there. It really comes down to preference. And like I wanted to be in the Aputure ecosystem because I knew that's what I wanted. I keep talking about lighting, but I think that's one of the best examples because it's also partially what I've spent some of the most money on. Other than camera gear, that's a Sony. And I mostly bought from Sony and small rig. I'm starting to buy from Tilta a little bit more. I actually got a shoulder rig from them for like $300, like the full kit, like shoulder rig for a DSLR camera. And it's pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still getting used to using it, but it's one of those things where it's cool to say I have a shoulder rig. That is definitely one of my purchases. That's like that kind of went for rule of cool. But yeah, let's just jump into that. I've been kind of like dancing around all of my best and worst purchasing decisions, and it's kind of funny, honestly. So to be fair, I've gotten a lot of things as gifts, and that's been wonderful. I shout out to my family for helping me to support my dreams. Like I just got a SAC camera saddle. Actually, it's right here. Eve, look. It's that camera saddle. It's pretty cool. Oh. Yeah, so yeah, I got the SAC camera saddle. Pretty cool, right? You know, I'm all cool like that. But got that for my birthday. I feel all special. But when we're talking, let me get back to like me and what I've bought. There are things that I think are, let me try and think of the things that aren't great purchasing decisions. I've definitely made them. I'm just blanking. Oh yeah, cheap tripods. Dude, cheap tripods are the worst. I'm just gonna tell you, like, get a decent tripod. The one I have is not incredible. It was still like $500. It's a real deal fluid head. So especially if you are a videographer, get a fluid head. You can shoot photos on it as well. It doesn't, like, it's all right. Like, spend the money. I promise you, it's worth it. I mean, and it's held up forever. And I will probably end up. Honestly, I'm trying to think. I don't know which one I'd switch out first, is either the legs or the head. There are things that I want, like I want the whole Sackler Flowtech, but that's not happening anytime soon. I don't got $3K to spend on a tripod. But yeah, let me look. Oh yeah, I know what I didn't like. I bought one of the Zhiyun light bars, and it's cool. Like, it's a neat light, but it's not super usable. Like even the I bought the other tube light is right over here. Yeah, right over here. And it's really usable. That's partially because it charges quickly. That's partially because it's super easy to control. That other Zhiyun light is not easily controlled. The output on it, it's kind of weird. The output on it doesn't feel great. It's like not soft enough, but it's also hard to soften, and it's just extra complication. And I was trying to make it do something, I think, that it wasn't really meant to do. Like a bar light or tube light like that is not meant to be like a key source. It's kind of meant to show up in the background, or I don't know. There's a lot of things it can do, but there's also a lot of things it just can't. It just can't do. Like this tube light will pretty much never be a main source for me. Usually I'm going to be working with a cob light of some sort, which I don't know. For people who don't know what that is, that's like the Aputure lights that have like the little sensor in the front that emits light. I just prefer that personally. Easier to modify, easier to shape. You can turn that into a really nice big source. Like I have a softbox over here that I really like. But I'm trying to think of other bad purchasing decisions. I Oh. Honestly, I'm going to say this microphone, the microphone that I'm using right now. I don't think it was a great purchasing decision. I wanted a podcast mic. I didn't need a podcast mic. I should have saved the $300 that I spent on this setup to get like lavs, because I went forever without lav mics. I just didn't have them. I couldn't afford them. And I just went forever without them because I was an idiot. Because I decided I wanted to buy the things that looked good over the things that were intensely practical. But those lav mics were one of my best purchasing decisions. Easily, hands down, one of my best decisions. I use them all the time. It makes audio so easy. It makes it so easy, dude. Because they're 32-bit float, I don't have to worry about them. I can throw them on somebody for an interview setup. And like, I just don't have to mess with anything. And I'm not a professional audio guy. I'm so far from a professional audio guy. It is one of the first things ever that I would hire out to somebody else is doing my audio. Especially if I was going to run podcasts for other people, which is something that I've been looking at doing. But it's just a nightmare. Like, I can do audio, but audio can just be a nightmare sometimes, especially when you got to watch a camera and watch the audio. No, please no. Yes, so that was the lav mics were a great purchasing decision. Honestly, I'd say my camera is too, but I feel like that's an obvious one. I think also my lights, a couple of my lights were really good decisions. The tube was definitely a fun one that I wasn't sure how much I was going to use, but has turned out to be so good. It's just a soft, even source, that is really fun to use, really easy to use. And then my 200 is a great light. I love that light. It has just been kind of the main key that I've used for a year plus now. But honestly, you know what else has been a great thing? It's been so helpful is buying grip gear. Like, grip gear is underrated for like solo videographers. If you're a solo videographer or you're at all looking at grip gear work or grip work, get Cardellini clamps and get A clamps. It's just essential, and you're not gonna like, I don't care. Actually, I shouldn't even say for grips only, but I don't care who you are. You should own A clamps. A clamps are like the little alligator looking clamps that you squeeze on the back. They look, or if you set them up like this, they look like an A. I bought those. I bought like a lot of them, and I would buy like the more expensive ones. They're not expensive to begin with, but I bought some really cheap ones. I have them sitting in a separate bin because they were so crappy to use, that I didn't want to use them. Like the rubber pieces on the front wanted to fall off, and they were just annoying. The other great purchase I made was a Cardellini clamp. Cardellini clamp is a lifesaver. It is what I use to hang my tube all the time. I want to get more of them just because I think they're great. Like, it makes my life so much easier. Just so much easier. It's a really nice clamp. It can clip onto, this will all depend on what you're familiar with. It can clamp onto your round stock, stands, square stock, all of it. Like, literally, it's a lot of how people hang frames. Like, if you want to put up a 6x or 12x frame, especially if you don't have ears for it, you'll take 2 Cardellini clamps, clamp them on either side, run that into 2 C-stands. I wouldn't recommend putting a 12x on that, but I mean, you could put a 6x, you could put an 8x on that. And 8x is getting a little dicey. I'd make sure you have sandbags for that. But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, those were some of my best purchases. Another one is the tripod, honestly. Like, a good tripod will carry you a long way, and they never go out of date. Like, unless you break it, it's a good tripod. Like, it's going to stay a good tripod. Like, that doesn't change. And even back then, I didn't know entirely what I was doing, but it turned out to be so worth it. Other great purchases, actually, I have the monitor right here. That is a great purchase right there. and that's a Atomos Shinobi monitor that I got used from a wedding videographer, and it was like super lightly used, like nothing to it. I think he wanted to upgrade, he wanted to get a new one, or he probably wanted the raw recording one, because there's one that does raw recording, and I didn't need it, so I wasn't worried about raw recording, so I literally took that and ran with it. But yeah, like this is like the monitor is a great purchase. It just looks so much better. The tools on it are super usable. Um, and then there are other things that are kind of like mediocre purchases. Honestly, most of the purchases I've made have been pretty decent. Not to brag, but I'm pretty good at this whole buying stuff. I made a lot worse purchasing decisions when I was a lot younger in my career. But I can tell you solidly things that you won't regret are having more stands, or buying grip gear, because grip gear is literally supposed to work with everything. It's supposed to work all the time with everything. If you're buying standard grip stuff, you're not gonna regret. You're typically not gonna regret that. Like that's just not. In general, that's just not happening. If you don't know how to use it, on the other hand, don't buy it. Just don't. Make sure you know how to use it. Like I bought an extra gobo head. That was great. Super useful. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other stuff that I bought. Honestly, most of the lenses that I bought have been pretty good too. I own 2 lenses. Actually, sorry, 3. I own a Nifty 50, which I feel like it's $200. Like $200 for a good lens, solid. It looks really good, really like tack sharp. That was just the Sony one. But then I have my Sigma 24-70 and my Sigma 70-200. Both of those, incredible lenses that have gotten me through most things. Honestly, the only time that I've really wanted something smaller was doing a little bit of like room or like house photography. I've done some location scouting, and I kind of wish I could just get a little bit wider. Like I just need a little bit more. Yeah. So for me personally, 24-70 is the lens that stays on my camera. We'll call it 85% of the time. There are specific occasions when that becomes very much untrue. Events, concerts. But other than that, I really keep this lens on it most of the time. It's what I'm using right now. It is just covers all standard distances. Everything on it feels pretty normal. You get a little telephoto, a little wide angle. So it's really, really great to work with. It's just so much fun to work with. Yeah, but those are kind of most of my best purchasing decisions. I think the other thing I'd recommend is just not overlooking the small stuff. Oh, I completely forgot about that. This is actually a major point to this whole thing. Go back to the flow chart, like spin all the way back to when I was talking about that flow chart. One of the things you have to consider is the total cost. And when I say total cost, I don't just mean the cost of the product. I mean the cost to use the product as well. So let's say you buy, I'm just going to keep using lights as an example because it keeps working. I buy an Amaran 200D, but I have no modifier and no stand. Is that light usable? No. So what are you going to end up doing? Like you could have bought this thing over here that would have also helped you for $200, but you went with the aperture light, which you're like, yes, this is the most helpful thing. But you didn't acknowledge the fact that you're going to spend another $200 on top of that to get a high quality stand, to put your high quality light on, and to buy a modifier. That might be a little bit more than what you'd actually end up spending, but it's not unreasonable to spend $70 on a modifier and another $50 on a stand. Like I have mine on fairly cheap stands from Impact, and they're good stands, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, they're still not Matthews stands, which cost $150 a piece. I mean, I love getting, this is kind of a rant, but I love Matthews gear. Like I love the build quality of Matthews gear, and I buy it when I can afford it. But for some stuff, I just straight up can't. The only thing I really, really do like from Impact is their C stands. I don't know why, but I really do enjoy the quality of their C stands. I think they hold up really well. They do a great job. Not saying that Impact or Avenger isn't better, but for like cheap C stands, they're great. Like they're $150, like somewhere between $150 and $170 most of the time. I like them. I rock with them. They're not a pain in the butt to use. They work like a standard C stand. I also like that they're like the ones that I buy are turtle base, which means you can take that the middle pull out and there's a junior receiver. So actually wait, let me just Okay, here we go. So that right there is a baby pen. That right there is a junior pen. So the difference, there are some lights that have junior pins on the bottom, and so you have to drop them into combo stands. This is me nerding out a little bit. While most lights take that, but the bottom of our C stands take this. So if you drop it in a turtle base C stand, and then you drop your light on top, like right there, then you have maximized the quality or maximized the usability of that stand. Like you have made that stand, have another use case. And that's actually a term that I completely forgot, but I definitely use all the time when it comes to purchasing, is what are the use cases for this product? So let's take an example of lenses. Lenses is actually a great example of use cases. So I am a wedding photographer and I'm like, okay, I only have, let's say 1,500. I have the camera with my kit lens on it and I was able to shoot like 2 weddings, like low budget weddings with the kit lens. But I have a little extra disposable income from my regular job, and I also am working the weddings on the weekends, and I'm trying to turn that into a full-time business because that's not an impractical setup. Like that's not an insane setup for a purchasing decision. You have to think, cool, I'm going, like, here are the shots that I typically get at a wedding. Let's say I do a lot of, that's awkward in frame. I do a lot of like kind of portrait style shots of the bride getting ready and then the couple together. And I'm like, most of the venues that I shoot, I can get really nice up and close to the stage, but I still want to be able to get close ups. So then you're like, okay, those are all my use cases. What lens is going to satisfy the most amount of those use cases? And what I was describing was kind of leaning into the 24-70, which a 24-70 is just a monster. Like it's just a beast of a lens. Like it will like that 24-70 has made me so much money. Like having that lens on that camera is kind of it's not a stylistic thing for me because it's not really an option. Like I've done mostly event stuff and I've mostly done product stuff in a small room. So I do what I can like get essentially. But, it's one of those things where that lens has made me so much money because of the range on it. It has the right range. But let's say you're a sports photographer, even a new sports photographer, and you're like, dude, I cannot keep working with this like 24-300 kit lens. Like they're actually like players actually want to pay me for my photos now, and I just am not confident in the quality. But I've made enough selling those photos to warrant a bigger lens. And I'm like, and you're like, I don't know what I should get. Like I shoot year round. I shoot sports year round. And I sell to magazines, I sell to players. So what do I buy? And if you just shot football, like if that was the only thing you shot, then I could solidly say you should buy a 200-400, right? But since you also shoot basketball and baseball and all of these things, so you really have to think and you're like, I can still get shots in football with my 70 to 200, but I can get more shots if I'm shooting tennis, lacrosse, soccer, all of these things with the 70 to 200 as opposed to a 100 to 400. And that might be the next lens that you buy. There's kind of a hierarchy of purchasing, right? You purchase the thing that has the most use cases first, that's going to start making the most amount of money. Then you buy the things that's going to fill in the gaps that last product couldn't do. And then finally from there, you start to buy things that improve the experience of you and or your customers, right? So that is just kind of the logical transition of how I've thought about buying products. Yeah. So you've heard about my best and worst purchasing decisions. You've heard about my ideology when it comes to purchasing. And now we're going to kind of jump into wrapping up the episode. First of all, I want to give you kind of the cinematography tip of the week. And to go along with our theme, it is use what you have. Like, let what you have and what we have access to become a stylistic choice. So let's say that like you have two lights. The only two lights you have are different color temperatures and you can't change them. I don't know what situation you'd be in where you have that, but let's theoretically say you have that. Then you let having two different color temperatures in every scene just like make your style for that project. Like, you allow the gear that you have to inform your creative decisions in such a way that it comes off as intentional, so that you can fake intentionality in a way. Because I've always told people that if people see a mistake, no, they didn't. It was a creative decision. No. That wasn't a mistake. I meant to leave that there. It was a creative decision. And yes, this is not as practical on major and large sets, but if you're shooting small projects, indie films, yes, it was a creative decision. It was always a creative decision. It was never anything else but a creative decision. But thank you guys all for listening this far, especially if you made it this far with me. I'm trying to get this podcast off the ground. I'm trying to figure out what I really want it to be. It's not going to diverge from kind of that original statement of we're here to talk about how media and creativity impacts business, both on the advertising and selling to businesses side, and how do you run a production business. Really want to talk about both of those. We're actively looking for clients. I run Troubadour Productions, and we are actively looking for clients. So if you hear this and you like it and you think, wow, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, you're crazy. But I still want you to hire me. I really do pride myself on being someone who works well with my customers, who is going to prioritize your experience and your ability to just connect with the work and to bring to life your vision. And if you don't have that yet, I'm happy to help you create it and make it into something that you can be really proud of. Video is just becoming an increasingly important marketing tool that you have to have in daily life. And you need more than just a standard homepage video. You need something that's going to speak volumes about your brand. I'm your guy. Like, I am all about authenticity and creativity and where those roads meet. But thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you guys in another week or so.